Everything just fell perfectly into place for the Avs as they are primed to head into the offseason after the many trades they made over the course of this season. Some good, some mid, and some ugly. We are going to take a look at every single one of these trades. We're going to assign them a letter grade, but it's not going to be a definite thing. There definitely has a lot of potential for it to either get better or worse as time goes on, all on this episode of Avs Digest. What is up, Avs Nation? We are your number one source for your Avs news, the most reliable and consistent that you got. Absolutely love you all. And just because I want more of you to join our little family, I just want to point out that 85.4% of you guys aren't actually subscribed. It's free to subscribe. You won't regret it, but let's just get right into it. And there were a lot of trades going through this that I actually forgot about. And really, you got to remember just how peak this goalie trades were at the beginning of the season. I mean, you got Justus Onanen and Alexander Georgiev as a bottom three goaltending pairing in the NHL. And you, over the course before the month of December is over, you were able to completely swap it out on the fly, get Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood here, and then it becomes a top three goaltending tandem in the league. I mean, that is unheard of. Literally no other NHL organization has done that before, and that deserves an A+ for Chris MacFarland because you don't even care about the assets that you gave up to get it. Nikolai Kovalenko, who, by the way, is not re-signing with the Sharks and might just be re-signed by the Avalanche in free agency, a second-round pick and a fifth, and which you just have a later fifth-round pick going the other way, and you gave up Justus Onanen. And in return, you got one of the best premier backups in the league in Scott Wedgwood. And both Scott Wedgwood and Blackwood are fantastic locker room guys. Absolutely carries the vibe in there. And really, that's perfect asset management. You don't miss the assets at all, and you love the new goaltending. So it's an A+. Now, looking at the next trades, which was actually hard to remember, was the trade to get Juuso Parssinen. The Avs traded Andre Pavel, who's kind of an underwhelming prospect, and they got a seventh, and they also had to trade a third to get Juuso Parssinen. And Juuso Parssinen is what you would hope a third-round pick becomes, because really, it's kind of a gamble anyway to outside of the first round to draft kids. And Juuso Parssinen is a very high skill guy. There were several good highlights of him floating around. And unfortunately, it just didn't work in Colorado. He didn't look great and ultimately had to be traded. And he was traded because these trades, I think, have a lot to do with each other. So I'm going to grade them together like I did with the goalies. You traded him for Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey. I liked Jimmy Vesey as the 13th forward. I hope he resigns with the Avs. But Ryan Lindgren's time post the first 10 games was not good. He was not good defensively. He was a liability. He was your worst defenseman in the playoffs. And you had to give up another second-round pick, a fourth-round pick, Juuso Parssinen, which is basically a third-round pick. And you also got to dump Calvin DeHaan's contract. Ultimately, not a great trade. This trade gets a D. It has the potential to maybe get better if Ryan Lindgren does resign in Colorado for a cheap cap hit and is your bottom pairing defenseman and maybe gets better for you. That could possibly make the grade go up, but ultimately right now, very underwhelming trade. Didn't push the needle for anybody. Ultimately, incredibly forgettable. Now let's look at the big one, and this was the Mikko Rantanen trade. This trade for me, I'm just going to spoil it right now, gets a B-, and that's subject to right now post the postseason run. Obviously, Mikko Rantanen was the one who eliminated the Avs from the playoffs, one of the worst losses in Avs history. But really, even if that hadn't happened, and I would say that it was a different Dallas player, I'd still give it the same grade. Martin Necas is a good point-per-game player. He was actually over a point per game this season, and I think that's a good return. You also get an elite fourth-line center in Jack Drury, who I think can actually be a good third-line center as well. You get a second-round pick that helps you get Charlie Coyle, and you get a fourth-round pick as well. I like these picks. I like the return that you got. But as of right now, the results have not been seen. I want to see Martin Necas continue to grow in the Avs system and re-sign an extension, and I want to see what Jack Drury can do as well and what the Avs do with these assets. So right now, that's the result of this trade. It has the potential to get better or worse. Now we get to basically what the Mikko Rantanen trade allowed them to do, which is get relief on a lot of their cap. Because if they had re-signed Mikko Rantanen, they would continue being the 3-player team that everyone criticized them of being. So because they were doing this, not only did they get Charlie Coyle, which is a spoiler for later, but they also were able to get Brock Nelson. William Dufour is an interesting forward prospect as well, but you had to give up premium assets to get Brock Nelson. You gave up Callum Ritchie, who was your best forward prospect, and a first-round pick. Now, after the Cup run, before they had re-signed Brock Nelson, basically comparing that Charlie Coyle trade, which, spoiler alert, is horrible, I was very low on Chris MacFarland. I did not like him as a GM. I expected him to be fired, but he wasn't. And now that Brock Nelson has re-signed his contract and we're going to be able to see the full potential of Brock Nelson coming into the Avs system with a full training camp, I like this. I like that he's re-signed long-term. He's not a rental. This trade for me currently is about a C+. It can get a lot better. If Brock Nelson doesn't do better, then that's not good. Obviously, it can go down, but if Brock Nelson actually becomes your shutdown, reliable second-line veteran center, perfect. You love that trade, and this will definitely get a higher grade as time goes on. Now let's look at the trade that gets as close to an F as I can resign it, and the only thing that saves this trade from being an F was the trade that happened just a few days ago. This trade is a D-. For Casey Middlestat, who still has a lot of potential as a prospect and who has decent term left, this should have been a 1-for-1 for Charlie Coyle. They had the same amount of points in this last season, and yet for some reason we had to pay extra. Fine, it's a seller's market. You also give up a pretty good prospect in William Zellers, who was the top player in the USHL just this past season, and there's no salary retained. That's the thing that hurts the most, is you take on one of the worst contracts for a third-line center in the league, which is Charlie Coyle making like $5.25 million, and you also give up a second-round pick, and there's no salary retained. I'm sorry, this trade is horrible. The fact that there's not at least $1 million, if Charlie Coyle was here for like $4.2 million, I'd be happy with it. I'd say, hey, that's an expensive third-line center, but that's all right. And frankly, because he was still making $5 million, it's a horrific trade. The assets you gave up were not worth it. But the only thing that redeems this trade and redeems CMAC, in my opinion, heading into the offseason, was this recent trade. And that was getting Gavin Brindley, who is a fascinating forward prospect, a third-round and a second-round pick. You recouped some of the assets you left on the table during the trade deadline, and you dumped all of Charlie Coyle's contract and Miles Wood contract as well. Thank you, Columbus. This is a steal for the Avs. The Avs got out of bad contracts. They got a good prospect and some draft capital as well. And now they're completely freed up with the money and with their picks to continue into either making trades or spending good money in the offseason. This has completely been a much better trade heading in. This was the trade that really redeemed Chris MacFarland for me. I give this an A+. This is great cap dump, and you somehow got good assets out of it. Gavin Brindley, like absolute sky-high expectation, could become Brad Marchand, or if we're being realistic and we're coming down to earth, maybe a Connor Garland as well. I really like him in the Avs system, especially as a kid who's already in the AHL. And really, like I said, this frees up so much movement for the Avs to make, as well as the picks they made. But that is going to do it for this one, guys. This was my trade grades of the recent trades. There might just be more right after this thing is released. But let me know what you guys think down below. Were there any trades that you thought I graded improperly? Were there any trades that you just absolutely hated more than I did? This has been real. This has been Avalanche Digest for you guys, and I will see you in the next one.